Garsen Naidoo is my guest on Future Cities Africa. He's Sub-Saharan Africa's country manager at Cisco. Garsen, welcome. Give us a brief introduction on your background and current role.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So my background, I have a background in the engineering industry. So I'm an engineer, software and hardware developer, worked in the defense industry for a while, and then moved into the IT industry with Cisco. So in Cisco, many different roles, from running different sales segments to running engineering in our partner organization, and now running the country.
What is Cisco's vision of a smart city? What does it look like and how is it defined?
You know, Cisco has always been a technology company at heart, and driving innovation and really capturing market transitions and driving market transitions forward. Our purpose as a company is to create an inclusive future for all. So I think we need to start there. And when you start looking at smart cities or future cities, it's how do we create that inclusive future? How do we create an inclusive environment? How do we make this best possible environment for our citizens, for our people and our communities? Now, with that, as we work through that, there's a number of different technology plays, technology options that come into play, a number of different scenarios that you'll have to play out. So our vision is built around a digital architecture for smarter cities and future cities. And I'll tell you why architectures are very important for us. Architectures give you a view and gives you a view of what this entire environment or ecosystem can possibly look like, and as you build out this future state that you're looking for, whether it be a city or whether it be an environment in technology. And the way it helps is it allows you to scale, allows you to be flexible as you build out this future for yourself. And I'll give you an example. Cisco is very big on architectures, and our architecture, our security architecture, our networking architecture allowed us in the pandemic to go from 20,000 people globally that were working remotely to more than 150,000 people and partners working globally. The only way we could do that is because we had an architecture and we had this vision and foresight of how things could scale up, right? So our vision for this future and for the smarter city is based on our digital architecture for cities, and it is encompassing. It is encompassing of different ecosystem players, different technology providers, but it is both. That vision is built, whether it's, we start talking about specific things about smarter parking, smarter lighting, all of this. So how do all of these things integrate together? And in essence, what you're trying to do is you're trying to put sensors on the city to give you increased visibility so you can make decisions and you can automate decisions and create an efficiency in that city, right?
Before we get into IoT, let's talk about the pandemic that was mentioned. How has the pandemic impacted Cisco and its clients, and what has the pandemic shown us about technology and innovation?
So the pandemic was very interesting, right? Okay, it was a challenging time for us as individuals and communities, countries in the world. But the interesting thing was that there's this concept of digitalization or digital disruption. We as technology, people in the technology industry have been speaking about this for a long time, right? And talking about how, digital technology is going to disrupt the way that we work, the way that we live, play and learn, etc. And we've been talking about the potential benefits or the vast amount of benefit that we're going to derive from technology. What I saw was in this during the pandemic that we were forced into a scenario to adopt these things at an accelerated pace, and then all of a sudden we said, "Hey, wow! Look how these things work. Look how well we can work. Look at how well we can collaborate." And the technology wasn't invented or innovated in this period. It was the adoption of the technology into our lives that actually created the benefit. So we saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of that shift. We saw projects that people said could take years to deliver happen in the matter of months, right? So you saw as organizations and businesses, as they went into this mode of how to create business continuity or how to derive business continuity, all of these things like cloud, remote working, those type of things started playing a significant role and helped us through that process. So we saw a lot of that. So I would say that we saw this accelerated digitization or digital disruption, and it actually helped us, kept us safe, and benefited our organizations.
even going forward, how can technology be used as an enabler to an inclusive economic recovery?
So, we're very big on creating an inclusive environment, right? As I said, an inclusive future for our people. I think the one thing that, if I'm talking about South Africa and Africa, and it's things that we've already been doing for quite a while. I'll give you an example. Let's take education, just education. I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about education, and I want to talk about healthcare and what happened within the pandemic and how we can take that forward. So let's take education. We have, in South Africa, we've got about 75 networking academies. But what this does is it allows or unemployed youth to be trained and certified in Cisco technologies and other IT essential certifications. So, and to allow them to get sufficient skills to be employed. We used to do 12,000 students a year, right? From probably the early 90s. We used to do, and that we saw that almost double to 21,000 people in the last year. The reason that we saw it double is because we started embarking on a virtual model of training. Now imagine doubling the amount of skills, people skilled in ICT and trained in networking and security, cybersecurity certifications, if you can double that. So I see that almost accelerate into the future, right? I see that, and that's something that we should actually embrace and make sure that we encourage going into the future. Right? And what happened was that previously people thought that you needed to go to a place to work, firstly, but also a place to learn. And now all of a sudden in the lockdowns, people were more agreeable to online training. And with the collaboration technologies like WebEx and the immersive nature of WebEx and all of our video technologies, it becomes easier in the way you interact, the way you engage, etc. So I see that going forward. Then I saw a whole lot of changes happening in the health industry, where virtual consulting almost became acceptable, right? I found doctors that I spoke to in the past, dismissing WebEx, right? And during the pandemic, when I put a DX80 or a Desk Pro on their desks and said, try this out, they were like, wow, this is amazing. But prior to that, they said, we don't need this video technology. I can do this all over the telephone. And then when I went back to ask them, hey, what's the difference now? I said, I can actually see the people in front of me. I can see, when I ask them questions about their medical conditions, I can see their reactions, and there's a whole lot of information that I get from that. So we saw that being adopted. And in addition to that, what we did as Cisco to help out during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially in our hospitals, in some of our public hospitals, you found that these wards were beginning to, during the peak periods, there were more wards that were required to treat people, COVID patients. And so what we started doing is using our WebEx technology, tailoring it in a way that solves some of our South African challenges, meaning putting UPSs, putting them on trolleys, allowing connecting LTE routers so that it could connect easily into the cloud. And then these trolleys were used at bedsides of the patients. And what that helped was a particular specialist was able to scale across so many more wards, right? And so many more patients and deliver that care to those patients. Now imagine if we do that to the rest of our country then. Imagine how great that would be, right? So I see that those two things being critically important going forward, and how it can create a really inclusive environment for all of us.
On the topic of the Internet of Things, IoT, what's the current state in Sub-Saharan Africa, and where do you see it going over the next 5 years? So IoT is very interesting for me in the way in which it can solve many of our challenges in Africa. There's a couple of trends that's happening within the market, and I think that is going to accelerate the way we do things going forward. So firstly, sensor technologies, IoT and sensor technologies are becoming more cost effective, right? Then we got 5G as a technology and connectivity technology that's going to create all of these devices to connect in a more effective and more reliable way. And then once we get all of that data, the accelerated adoption of cloud gives our people in Africa
an ability to take data and use that in creative ways by integrating into any one of the hyperscalers. So I think that we're going to see an accelerated, let's say, an environment where we're going to accelerate in terms of how we leverage that data to solve our challenges, whether it be in agriculture, whether it be in health, whether it be in mining. So I think there's going to be a real adoption of that, and our population, our young population, as we train them. I mentioned our networking academies, as we train them in software development and data analytics and leveraging cool tools like machine learning and artificial intelligence. I think we're going to solve some real challenges in Africa. So we're going to have the people of Africa solving challenges for Africa. But I'm even more excited about how we, the people in Africa, start solving the challenges in the rest of the world. Because now that we start driving this connectivity into Africa, we start building the skills base. I think there's a lot of benefit and opportunity for us to solving challenges for the world.
How does Cisco collaborate or partner with public sector and private sector to help improve city service delivery, the quality of life of citizens, and make cities smarter?
Let's start at the very basis of digitization, right? So Cisco has this program called Country Digitization Acceleration. And what Country Digitization Acceleration does is it allows certain initiatives that are going to be impactful for the country to be driven by Cisco and supported and funded by Cisco. So we've got about 37 countries around the world at the moment where we drive this initiative called CDA, Country Digitization Acceleration. And in South Africa, we have an investment from Cisco that is targeted around our digitization and our acceleration of those digital projects. Now, in each one of those countries, you look at what the priorities are. And in South Africa, what we're doing from a country digitization acceleration is, firstly, fundamentally, we're focusing on the skills development for the future, whether it be the future of cities, the smarter cities, or the future of how we leverage technology to make better societies and communities for all of us. I think that's the first pillar, is skills development. The second pillar that we're looking at from a South African point of view is, okay, yes, let's invest in small businesses, right? Let's invest in SMMEs, because it is an initiative that is going to drive our country forward, solve some of our unemployment challenges, and build a more inclusive economy. So what we've done is we built these centers called edge centers. These are incubation centers. Basically, what we do is we take SMMEs, we train them in a particular area, we allow them to become Cisco partners, because as Cisco, we have a partner ecosystem. We work through our partners. We do all of our business through our partners, and we encourage that model, right? Because we actually enable and empower the local businesses within a country. So our partner ecosystem is very critically important to us. So we build these SMMEs into these partners, right? And we give them facilities. We give them it almost looks like a Cisco office that they can come in and they can use for a period and as they build their businesses. And our collaboration technology allows them to link into our offices in Bryanston and Cape Town for those experts that can help them, build these solutions, create innovative solutions for their environment, for their communities. And also this collaboration technology like WebEx that I'm talking about, and all of our video endpoints allow them to connect into the rest of the world, globally into Cisco, so that they can tap into other innovations, other learnings, and bring that into South Africa. So I think that's the way we partner. We try and solve the challenges that we see in a particular country, and we drive that to ensure that we create a more inclusive future going forward, but leveraging technology to do so.
Implementing Cisco's vision must come with its challenges. So if I give you a magic wand and I tell you that you can change one piece of legislation or one way that people think or do, what would that be and why?
I think let me comment on changing people's thinking, because what I've seen during the pandemic is that we changed everybody's thinking to see what is the possible, what is the art of the possible, right? Rather than accepting status quo and moving forward in small increments, we saw a big shift. the one thing in terms of people's thinking is that I'd like to change is looking forward and always looking at what is possible. Right? What is this piece of technology going to help me enable and create in terms of the future? What is this benefit that it's going to bring to me, and is there a potential benefit? I want people to stop saying, no, this is not going to work for me, but rather apply their minds to think, hey, how can this benefit me? Because that's what we did during the pandemic, right? We saw that all of a sudden people were open to things like cloud and working from home and remote working and things like that. So and collaboration, and it worked. So I think having an open mind is something that I'd like people to change. And the other thing is to work across silos. So, for example, in the cities, we have traditional ways of looking at cities: the roads, water, electricity. Those are, you could almost call them silos, but there could be benefit of working across them. How do you create a common platform across them to derive the efficiencies from there, right? So I think that's the other piece that I think I would like to wish for the future.
What are the main lessons taken from 2020, and how can Cisco address them to not only survive, but also to thrive in the future?
The lessons learned from 2020, we as Cisco have always been an organization that has encouraged the use of technology in terms of the way we work. So remote working for us is part of our DNA. And when we went into this pandemic, I think I closed the Cape Joburg office around about the 16th of March. That was big as a result of a global lockdown. On the 17th of March, we started working. Right? We were fine. Everybody was working. But the lesson that we learned was that while you're engaging with technology, and technology is allowing you to engage, you've got to understand what's going on with the people behind that. Right? And very quickly, we began understanding that the people behind that were almost working harder, right? And there was scenarios where they were being overworked, right? Purely because they wanted to be in front of they were so connected all of the time. So I think one of the lessons that we did very early on was encourage our leadership to pay attention to the people more than just the work that they were doing, right? And we encourage this throughout our organization, but I think it became more and more relevant as we started connecting people more and more and having a almost always on connection, right? So it's about understanding what's happening with your people, even though they're not right next to you, right? So this virtual world is, don't take it for granted that your people are doing well. It's about building a new way of leading within this virtual environment that allows you to still connect. It was many things that we did. We did, virtual coffees, virtual wine tastings, virtual chocolate tastings, virtual yoga, virtual exercise sessions. And now we're going on to walking meetings because, people need to get out. There's something else that we're encouraging now is an hour in oxygen a day. Get out, right? Otherwise, you're sitting in front of your PC. So while technology enables that, I think you need to always consider the human side aspect of that as well. So I think from a Cisco point of view, one of the key learnings for us is how do we operate and make sure that this is a great environment for our people, right? And how do we keep them safe, but also keep them well, right? So that, and still connect with them, because it's a very important piece of us. So encouraging other people to do the same and make sure they lead in that way and still keep their people at heart, right? And keep people as the core of their organization and understand what they're doing.
How do you see cities change over the next 5 years, and what are you hoping to see?
That's an interesting question, Dan. I was, reflecting on how cities could change. I think we're going to look at what's happening within our environment. Take the work from home scenario, the remote working. I think that is here to stay, but it's here to stay in a hybrid model, right? So I don't think we can continue going on fully remote. I think there's going to be a hybrid way, and we at Cisco are looking at different models as well. How do we take this single office that we have and split it up into multiple offices around a city, right? So that when people want to come together to collaborate physically, they can, and they can still connect into the other offices. So what is that new space? What is that new collaboration space? And then if you start thinking about that, all of a sudden people start traveling less. So does the traffic reduce in the cities? And then does smart parking become really a big challenge for us to reduce congestion in the cities? Or, so I think there's a dynamic at shift here, Dan, that we need to consider. What happens to all of these buildings now that people are working from home? Are they going to be turned into residential spaces? And how does that impact the city? And how does it impact the way we look at the city? Right. So I think there's a piece of work that needs to be done to consider what's happening currently now as a result of the pandemic, and what are these trends going to push onto us in terms of from a city point of view. Right. So if you ask me what I want to see in the city, besides traffic lights that work in the rain, I think we want to find a more inclusive environment, something that's a safer environment where we can leverage technology to proactively dispatch our security forces or police to areas where we're seeing concern. I mean, it's very easy to link a stolen vehicle registration number, cross-reference that on a database, and identify that it's stolen from video surveillance cameras, and automatically dispatch somebody or the police to that point to investigate, right? So it's all of those things that can be automated while we leverage the technology. But I think that ultimately we want to see a safer, more inclusive environment for all of us, right? Something that where you can walk around the city, something you can be comfortable walking around the city and have what you need, or get to what you need very quickly within a short space or a short distance or convenient distance.